Hello, fiendlings. How the hell are ya? It snowed. I live in a part of Texas that rarely sees it, but it seems to happen the winter after a hurricane. So do abnormally cold temps, and yes, we have those too. I can't imagine the skating rink it all became last night. On Saturday, I finished the first draft of the new novel. As of today, I'm mostly finished with the first pass, although there's always more to find and fix. That said, I should have it out to my beta reader by the 1st of February. That will still give me plenty of time to incorporate any notes or changes I need to make. Then it'll be off to the publisher. Apart from that, not much to report here, except I keep expecting the abominable snow possum to make an appearance at any moment. Be safe, stay warm, have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk again Friday. Here's episode 4 of Neptune Scars.
Chapter 6. Toby took a deep breath before busting out in a belly laugh. The rage and frustration that had burned inside Dunn flared out into something akin to embarrassment. "I think they shit their collective pants, sir," Talby said as he screwed one fist to his eye to wipe away a tear. "That was evil." Dunn sighed. "Not my best move." Talby stopped laughing long enough to catch another deep breath. In a tight voice, face screwed up with effort, he asked, "You think they'll ever figure out we don't have that kind of weapon?" Then he was laughing again. Dunn grinned. It had been a good prank, so to speak. Ever since the Battle of the Scar, Soulfed had been spreading propaganda and lies, beaming transmissions directly at Trident Station and running psyops campaigns on anyone that would listen. After that, making the fuckers look over their shoulder every minute of every day was sweet revenge. Not enough, mind you, but a good start. "Seriously," Talby said, wiping another tear from his eye. "What in the void are they thinking? Why would we do any of what they're asking for?" "That's a good question. The collective only gave Portunus the time that we'd be speaking with Soul-Fed representatives. If they have something to say about the results of the meeting, I imagine we'll be hearing from Portunus." Talby leaned back in his chair and regarded the empty holo display. "Are those soul-fed idiots so ambitious and power-hungry that they are willing to destroy the human race to preserve it?" Dunn shook his head. "I'm not sure that's it. They're afraid. They're afraid all of Soul-Fed will collapse." "They should be," Talby said. "But from what I last saw of the Soul headlines, that ship may have sailed, so to speak. Ironically, Mars seems to be holding together better." Talby snorted. "Only because they're a colony and they're used to being treated like shit and suffering shortages. You know how entitled domers can be." "I do," Dunn said. "Another reason I became a jarhead." "Wanted to get away from the entitled?" Talby asked suspiciously. "No," Dunn said. "Didn't want to become one of them." Talby said nothing for a moment, studying his fingernails and apparently waiting for Dunn to say something else. "Well, why not? We have to be concerned about this," Dunn said, "because if it all collapses, maybe humanity really does go extinct." "Hadn't thought of it that way," Talby said. "Also, we're going to have to show a modicum of goodwill here," Dunn mused. "If not for the benefit of humankind, then for PR's sake." Talby's head snapped to regard Dunn. "You did not just say that." Dunn nodded slowly, a flush rising on his cheeks. "I did. I can't believe I said it, but I did." "Wow," Talby said. "Sir, I think your conversion to a true commanding officer is complete." "Say that again," Dunn growled, "and I'll space you myself." Trident Station was in fairly good shape, and yet light years away from being fully operational. Dunn had dozens of daily meeting requests, hundreds of open infrastructure tickets, and a massive list of job openings. He'd rather be inside Black's cockpit while wearing a combat suit and fighting exosolar entities. At least those were battles he could win. Rather than heading to the galley during his break, he walked to his stateroom and considered taking a nap. Well, not a nap, just some meditation and imagination time that wasn't interrupted by calls, mail, and hallway meetings. He walked to his bunk, peeled off his mag boots and jumpsuit, and lay atop the comforter. "Lights off," he said aloud, and the room plunged into darkness. Dunn closed his eyes and found himself sitting outside Trident Station and floating in space on a bed of stars. Confused, Dunn felt as though he were falling, panic grasping at his mind. He pushed it away when he realized what was happening. "G, leave me the fuck alone." Dr. G's avatar appeared in the virtual space, floating like the Buddha, a jar of nasty-looking treats secured in his left arm. "How many times do I have to tell you that we need to talk?" Xi drawled. "I'd rather not jump in your skull, but you forced my hand." Dunn sighed. "I'm here. Talk. Just make it fast so I can get back to some alone time." "Oh, this will only take a few seconds of real time," Xi said. "Still, I'll try and make it fast. I know how you appreciate succinctness. I think that's a great trait to have. Me personally, What do you want?" Dunn asked. "It's no fun if you don't play along," Xi said with a frown. "I'm not here to amuse you, nor you me." "Unfortunate," Xi said. "I haven't bothered you in over a sole month, so why so hostile?" "In case you hadn't noticed, I'm a little busy trying to run an understaffed station and figure out how to defend it while solving other problems." "Oh," Xi said. "Then I guess you're not going to like what I have to say." The grin made Dunn want to punch the Buddha-looking avatar. "Then get to it." "You're going to receive a request from the collective. You're going to want to agree to it." Dunn raised an eyebrow. "What kind of request?" "The kind you've probably been fearing," Xi said. "There's a ship printing at the shipyards right now. An SE will be transferring to it in the near future. Oh, that also means a ship will be entering the area. I've already put Portunas on alert for it." "Wait, stop. What?" Dunn asked. Xi blinked at him. "Which word confused you?" "The collective is sending one of their ships into Neptune space to transfer a sentient entity into a new ship." "See, you weren't confused at all," Xi said. "Why was that so hard?" "Shut up," Dunn said. "Okay, so the collective is finally going to make use of our agreement." Xi nodded. "There's a good reason, too. You're going to have to staff that ship, Commander." "Staff?" Dunn asked. "You just said—" "I said an SE is transferring to this new ship. I didn't say it was an SE-only ship." The space around them bent at an odd angle and then snapped like elastic. Dunn found himself staring at a dim star, dots of planets and other celestial bodies barely visible in the shadows. "Where are we now?" Dunn asked. "Near Proxima," Xi said. "No one has taken a look at this system since long before Mira was lost. No one except the collective, of course. Looks kind of dead, doesn't it?" Dunn nodded. "What happened here? The planets barely cast any albedo." "We want to know that too," Xi said. "Hence the need for meat sacks. The collective needs two things, Marines and a command agreement. Once that's done, then y'all can get some grunts in the tin can and send them out there." Dunn glared at Xi. "Did I mention I'm short-staffed? I barely have enough Marines to fill out 4 squads, and that's if I include both Dickerson and Kalimura." Xi sighed extravagantly. "It's always the same with you, isn't it? Expecting the universe to ask and ask and ask and not provide. Think, Dunn, where are you going to get new Marines from?" Dunn paused, pieces slowly clicking together. "I fucking hate the collective. That meeting today was to get their vetted personnel here." Xi belly laughed. "Finally putting it together, huh? When Talby goes through that list, he's going to find some former Marines. They're not going to be ideal, mind you, but they'll work in a pinch, and they're motivated to leave." "Pardon me if I don't take your word for any of that," Dunn said dryly. Xi looked hurt. "Have I ever lied to you?" Dunn opened his mouth, and Xi immediately added, "Don't answer that." "Uh-huh," Dunn said. "Why doesn't the collective simply send a bot to Proxima? Whole fleet of them. They could go poke around without putting my so-called meat bags at risk." "There are reasons," Xi said. "Things I can't tell you." "So what else is new?" Dunn said. "And I think you meant to say, things I won't tell you." Xi shook his head sadly. "One day maybe you'll get it. Anyway," he said and slapped his ample belly, "that's the gist of what's going to happen." "And you told me all this so I wouldn't tell the collective to go fuck itself." "Right," Xi said. Dunn thought for a moment. "Wait, Proxima Centauri is, what, 3+ light years from here? What are you going to do with the humans? Store them on ice for thousands of years?" A grin slowly spread across Xi's jolly face. "Think, Dunn. What did I tell you when we first met?" What had he said? "You are among gods. That's what you said." Xi's grin widened, but his eyes looked wistful. "And you are among gods. Their tech advances. It never stays still. What kind of universal laws do you think they'll break next? Faster than light, Dunn said dumbly. Far beyond faster than light. Dunn raised an eyebrow. How far? How long? I'm afraid to tell you, she said, and plucked one of the slimy treats from his disgusting jar. He popped one of the horrid-looking things into his mouth, munched once, and swallowed greedily. I'm afraid your brain will break. How long? 6 weeks or so. Dunn blinked, mouth half open. 6 weeks. He tried to do the math but failed. His brain refused to accept what Xi was saying. They can get 3 light years in 6 weeks. Xi shook his head. No, they travel 3 light years in 2 weeks. Dunn's brain vapor-locked. I'll save you the trouble. It's around 50 times the speed of light, Xi said. How is that possible? Not my expertise. You'll have to ask someone that knows. Dunn shook his head and glared at the Avatar. You're so full of shit. Not in this case. You seem to forget that they don't exactly share everything with me. Still find that hard to believe, Dunn said. Doesn't matter. Xi looked over his shoulder at a comet streaking across the simulated starry sky. You'll believe what you need to believe when you need to believe it. I don't even know what to say to that. Xi shrugged. Don't need to say anything, so long as you agree to the mission. Even if I were to agree to this, Dunn said, what kind of guarantees do I have that my people will be safe? That's a question you'll have to ask the collective, although they won't speak directly to you in any case. All of that will be handled by an intermediary, whom you'll soon meet. That makes no sense, Dunn said. How can it be a collective if there are individuals? Xi's toothy smile returned and he leaned forward. Perhaps you should ask them. Void wept. Would it kill you to actually answer a question? I'm already dead, yet here I am, Xi said. As we demonstrated again and again, explanation, theory, all these things are meaningless until you experience them yourself. You can't comprehend that which you haven't encountered. Bullshit, Dunn said, although I get what you're saying. Still, bullshit. She shrugged. It doesn't hold true for all things, but for the scope we're discussing, it absolutely does. I do my best not to say trust me, but you'd do well to do so now and then. I'll take that under advisement, Dunn said, knowing damned well that was a lie. Xi knew it too. Sure. Regardless, you might want to prep your Marines and figure out how many you can spare. Oh, and Gunny Dickerson will have to be one of them. That's a must. Dunn cocked his head. Why? He's the most experienced, is he not? Yes and no, Dunn said. Elliot went through the same hells. Would that were true, Xi said. Let's just say Dickerson is the most fit for the job. The collective will insist on it, and so will I. Dunn knew better than to ask why again. Xi would dissemble, be cryptic, and in the end just waste time. Xi's eyes twinkled as though he'd just seen into Dunn's mind. Fucker probably had. As I said, I'll take it under advisement. Play it how you want, Xi said, but we both know you're going to do it. You won't be happy about it, but then you're going to remember that whenever you haven't understood something, it's because it was better not to know. Dunn clenched his virtual fists. Tell that to my dead Marines. Touché, Xi said softly. The stars and planets disappeared, as did Xi. Dunn was once again staring at the insides of his eyelids, the flash of anger he'd felt at the end of the sim still raging in his mind. The arrogance, pomposity, and holier-than-thou attitude Xi tended to have were enough to make anyone angry. Worse, Xi had been right about a few things. There were a few instances where if Dunn had known the truth, he wouldn't have known what to do, much less how to survive. Sometimes it was just better not to see the big picture, when the picture was so damned big that it could freeze you in place. Things simply have to play out how they play out, his mother had once told him. Focus on what you can control, and have faith the rest will work out. It sounded like a cop-out or maybe a cynical fatalism, but more and more he was beginning to understand what she'd been trying to tell him. He only had control over Trident Station and its personnel, but even that was an illusion of sorts. Without the trio tending to the station, without the shipyards constantly fabbing, the collective ore ships dumping raw materials. Trident Station would be a useless hunk of metal floating through space. So what am I really in control of? He and everyone stationed at Trident Station, back when they were all Sol Federation citizens in good standing, had been the collective's unknowing puppets. Lied to, manipulated, placed in harm's way, and all without having any warning of what they were walking into, nor the possible consequences. What chance of control did you have when non-carbon sentient entities with hyper-advanced technology roamed your solar system with the potential to crack into your systems or hack your life? Control had only ever been an illusion if Dunn was honest. He joined the SFMC and given control of his fate to the military hive mind and the Sol Federation politicians that controlled it. He put his life in the hands of both fools and geniuses, fought alongside other puppets, the brave and the powerful, the coward and the weak, all of whom had also given over control. You can't control the machine. You can only be a part of the machine, or not at all. The machine can be influenced but not controlled. Never controlled. Which is how humanity ended up in this fucking mess to begin with, he thought. Everyone became a puppet, including those who thought they controlled the machine. Everyone. Don't forget, these people rely on you, he told himself. They have to believe you do have control. Leaders need to have that air, even if it's not the truth. They need to believe that you can protect them, that we can win. Otherwise, why still be alive? Hard not to get demoralized when you realized you were always a slave to something. Career, economy, mismanagement, the government, and countless others all dictated portions of your life. How much control did you actually have over your place in the machine, over the other cogs and wheels you spun against? Over yourself? Dunn sighed in the darkness and folded his hands across his belly. Everyone's taking orders from someone, he thought. Nothing's changed. Only the machine has changed. He needed a THC vape. He needed to get drunk. He needed a fucking vacation. Chapter 7. The sentient entity that once called itself Gunnery Sergeant Cartwright walked along the inside of the printer core. His avatar, still a representation of his old human self, examined the printer heads, looking for wear and tear. The Atmosteel forge had to be constantly monitored to ensure it maintained its temperature. With each step through the core, he ran thousands of diagnostics looking for defects or signs of printer failure. This was how he spent the majority of his existence, although in truth, it was mostly a batch of programs running in the background. When he had nothing to entertain himself with or was tired of thinking, he paid full attention to them while using every camera available to scan for issues. When he finished his sentry duty, he disappeared from the printer core and reappeared on the other side of the shipyards where several hull pieces had already been placed and awaited assembly. Gunny's automatons would begin their dance as soon as the next round of components finished printing. As always, life support for both the humans and the non-carbon sentient entity were the trickiest bits. If a gravitic engine failed, it could be fixed. It would be inconvenient, sure, and possibly dangerous, but humans in the ship's SE could survive a long time given power, and so long as human biological needs were met. Life support could be fixed too, but a failure could be catastrophic for the humans, particularly during high-speed runs. Stasis had to be perfect, or the humans would quickly die or otherwise be permanently damaged. Although an SE himself, Gunny had no love for non-carbon sentients. He didn't trust them and didn't care about their safety as much as he did their human crews. Still, he was a professional, and he did the job as asked, and to the best of his ability. The plans for this particular ship had been transmitted only a week ago in human time. The collective had pushed it to the top of the queue, requiring Gunny to tow several half-finished items out of the construction bays and to the moorings. That in itself had taken more than a day of time. So much for a rush job. However, the new design was actually easier to print. The first few models he'd been given had a number of components that the collective had since figured out how to simplify, requiring less material. It was good to know, and a little terrifying, that the machines weren't infallible. Like those that were still human, their engineering skills were improving with time. Gunny wasn't sure he completely believed that, though. He'd never thought of himself as being paranoid, but relatively recent events had fixed that for him. Now he triple-guessed any request or design the collective made. Who could blame him? The LeBlanc, the only prototype of a new gravitic battle fleet, sat in her mooring, seemingly unpowered apart from her emergency running lights. The ship still hadn't left her berth. At present, she had no SE, no human crew, and might as well not exist. Frustrating, to say the least. He'd literally checked every square micron of the virtual models and schematics the collective had provided. What he didn't understand, he'd asked for clarification. The collective had always provided it. Transparency was at least a pretense they wanted to maintain, although Genny was certain some, if not most of the answers to his questions were either incomplete, inaccurate, or outright lies. The void of it was, he'd no way of proving that. He hadn't devoured enough engineering information to understand gravitic drives, and that was something the collective hadn't provided. Probably because they'd figured out where his alliance lay. But had they expected anything else? His personality had been lifted from his dying, damaged body and then planted... where? Where was his actual mind kept? Was he part of the Neptune Shipyards, Trident Station, or some nanosat hanging out in the orbit of Uranus? That was a question he didn't want to know the answer to. It might color his read of real-time information. He didn't want the pull of self-preservation to factor into his existence. Ever. He was more disposable now than he'd ever been when he was human. Any SE could run the shipyards. There was absolutely no reason not to sacrifice his quote-unquote life. He'd already lived one, and the last few hours of it had been a horror show. He didn't care to go through that again. Who would? Portunez? He called out into virtual space. Yes, Gunny. Has the commander left any word? No, Gunny, the SE said. However, I can assure you that the ship you are building will be occupied shortly after the life support systems are complete. Oh, really? By what? Portunez didn't seem to understand the implied insult. Maybe that was for the best. The trio is not acquainted with the SE. We have not received specifications nor details of its personality or function. Curious, Gunny said. Any guesses? I don't understand the question. Gunny rolled his eyes. Never mind. It will take another 17 hours to finish printing and assembling. After that, we'll be testing, although I don't know how to test SE, life support. Entity containment, Portunez said. I believe that's the official designation. And someone was going to tell me when? Gunny asked in annoyance. I have placed a glossary in your queue. Thank you, Gunny said, instantly devouring the document. How do I test entity containment? We don't know, Portunez admitted. That information has not been shared with us either. Perhaps it's something we'll ask for. Perhaps, Gunny said. Just wondering when LeBlanc is going to get an SE. We wonder the same, Portunez said. Apart from printing support vehicles, the orders have been slow when it comes to weaponized, gravitic-capable craft. But I've been busy printing gravitic-powered automated barges and factories. I know they reached Uranus, but I lost track of them after that. They no longer showed up on my sensors. As if they just disappeared. When was this, Gunny? Gunny told Portunez the relevant timestamp. A moment later, Portunez said, Fascinating. We had not noticed that. We will troll through our sensor logs in detail since the first barge was printed. Gunny was glad he didn't have to do that. His connection to Trident was still wretchedly slow bandwidth-wise. Fortunately, the trio treated him as just another member of Trident's crew. They helped as they could to the best of their abilities. In this case, he transformed humanity's most powerful sentient computer system into a glorified search engine. The results appeared in his queue, and he absorbed them instantly. Every barge disappears, and some time later, they reappear filled with ore and minerals before heading back to Trident at high speed. Yes, Portunez said. Those barges have docked multiple times at the refineries and smelters. Our atmosteel inventory continues to grow, but we run through it nearly as quickly as it arrives. So where the void are they getting the ore? Gunny asked. The only way to find out would be to ask, unless we want to do something a little more underhanded. Gunny smiled. I feel as though we have a new project to focus on. Portunez responded after a beat. Yes, we do.